it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful, empowered harmonizers. We are zooming in and focusing in on a great viewer question that states that no matter what, they're just having trouble letting go of an individual who is a covert narcissist. They're just having trouble getting over them, letting them go, even though they understand logically in their mind that the relationship has its limitations. It has its issues, it has its problems, it has its mechanisms that cause you to be stunted in your growth and inhibited in your happiness, and really, stops you from the journey of pursuing your potential and being empowered and having that higher vibration of knowing that you're really better meeting your life target and your life goals and where you should be, but then kind of there's a propensity to kind of backslide, a propensity to want to regress, a propensity to want to brood and just sort of recycle over the relationship and just feel like it's in its own little special cubby hole, that it's like a teddy bear that you just don't want to part with. A relationship with a covert narcissist can be connected very much through a trauma bond. A covert narcissist, even though on the outside they might seem lovable, happy, benign, oftentimes a covert narcissist has very hidden emotions and very hidden insecurities. One thing we have to understand about a narcissist, they do not broadcast their feelings. They don't let their true emotions show. To them, that's not what life is all about. To a covert narcissist, or an overt narcissist for that matter of that fact, or even a psychopath, life is all about putting on a show. It's all about being on stage. It's all about being in the theater. Now, as I talk to you now, I'm speaking, but I'm not on stage. I'm in the core of my being. I'm not acting. This is my authentic self. So, but this is vastly different from a covert narcissist who is stuck on really the level of desire, and then trying to use that sort of as the superficial connector between the relationship, even though they are harboring deep-seated insecurities that prevent them from being fully available emotionally to people, fully able to sort of, separate themselves from their own needs and really be there for another person. In other words, to have empathy, to understand and have compassion, to be able to share tools and resources that you need rather than hiding them, rather than keeping them hidden and locked away. In other words, there's a lot that they could do to share with you and be supportive and be beneficial, but they just don't do it. It's like, this is my treasure. This ain't my job. Go talk to somebody else in the department. This is not my job. So it's kind of like they shrink or shriek away from certain responsibilities. And so there is this empty desire. And desire is really founded or sourced, I feel, to a good degree, although it is shared in the covert narcissist. We have to understand that one thing about human beings is we exist on more levels than meet the eye. It's just how it is. We are part of not only this earth plane, but also the galaxy at large. The carbon in our bones were derived from collapsing stars. Our components, our mineral base, what we are composed of and derived of, and what we need nutritionally is symbiotic in nature, and it's far more expansive than just the room, the car, the computer, the phone. People's reality nowadays are, put into, a 7x4 inch device or a laptop or maybe a big screen TV, and they're getting away oftentimes from their fundamental nature. And it makes it very easy for people to, especially covert narcissists, to withdraw, to retreat, to remain indifferent, and to remain aloof. But yet there is still this underpinning desire, which does not meet the eye. A desire to keep people close who are of service to them. Supply sources. What can you do for me is essentially, the undergirding aspect of the covert narcissist. If it's not something there for them, even if there is a degree of responsibility, a parent, a manager, etc., there's a degree to which they should be, available. They're just going to remain very limited in communication and also sharing of their feelings. But there is this underpinning desire which those people who are in relationships pick up on. Oftentimes we find that a lot of people who are in relationships with a covert narcissist are very altruistic, meaning they're very giving of themselves. It's very easy for them to be filled up by taking care of others and the joy from that, putting others first, making others, the best that they can be without receiving the same. It's all about, the giving nature, the big heart, the care, the empathy, meaning that sensitivity and awareness of the pain of others, even if it is unspoken, and to be there. So part of the desire that keeps the trauma bond stuck while you are still ruminating is to understand that there's an unfulfilled desire that is still being, communicated non-verbally and in your subconscious in this relationship. In other words, it's like the job that doesn't ever get done. It's like a forever commitment. I will be there for you in your pain. I will be there for you in your optimal moments. I will be there to take care of you. All this is sort of still running in your program, your conditioning, and what you have validated, memorized, and rehearsed, and then furthermore limited yourself from other types of relationships that could, fill the space, fill the need, fill your life, and raise you up energetically instead of keeping you down in the depression, the apathy, not really having motivation, being stuck in shame, in other words, feeling that I haven't satisfied this person, because oftentimes their quietude expresses disappointment or what we might perceive as them being disappointed. So especially people who are very empathetic, altruistic, and codependent, they're all about keeping the folks around them happy. If you're happy, if I'm focusing on you, if I'm talking about your life, if I'm talking about your history, they're getting that need, that ego stroke met, and it's oftentimes not reciprocated, but it is consumed by the covert narcissist. So there's this consumptive quality and this desire or sort of subtle emotional hunger, really, that is based on those unspoken insecurities and hurts within the covert narcissist, that because they're not communicated, they're always sort of there bubbling beneath the surface, and they don't ever really get resolved because they're not aired out, they're not worked through by this individual. And so it's like this task that's never done, and it's very difficult to move on. There's this degree of, denial also that ensues with this desire. But to move beyond, you have to move beyond desire. Being a supply is all about satisfying somebody's desire. And, and desire indicates fulfillment or emptiness. And if you don't have your desires met, this is the root of unhappiness. It will never happen for me. I won't find a relationship. I can't have any fun. I'm not talented. All these unmet desires that you want, something to be, and yet there's this gap between where you are and where this is, and you haven't reduced the gap. Staying with a covert narcissist allows you to create that moat or that gap around you. So the moat is, if you think back in the day about those homes that were surrounded by it's like a body of water that people in deep enough so that if you didn't, it basically could not be crossed. And then they would lower a gate so then they would have control of who came in and out. So being trauma bonded is like living in an emotional moat, or having a moat around you where nobody can really get in there. you've kind of blocked it out. You've kind of put up a wall or something that deflects others or, bounces others away. And then you're pushing away the very people who you really truly want and need in your life. So it's all about the really truly stuff that we are trying to get at. And so that desire to understand that if you're always, it's like if you're grocery shopping and you're hungry, you're in a state of desire. For a lot of people, this is very stimulating because it moves people forward. But at some point, you have to move above desire. In the covert narcissist, it's almost like this desire is never met. It's never contented. There's this undergirding, foundational, either insecurity wound, need, something unspoken, that oftentimes is the covert narcissist sort of ego that they have held on to and that they are very possessive and protective of. It's very unique. So it's to understand that the other part of the desire trap with a covert narcissist really is interesting, because then there's this incessant craving. We see a lot of that in these narcissistic relationships where the relationship is stuck sort of on the crave level. In other words, you crave to be with them. You crave the uncertainty. Are they going to get me this time? Are things going to work out? Am I going to satisfy them again? And so I've got that cycle of tension and release fulfilled. But this then breeds sort of an enslavement of you to them. There is an enslavement or a trauma bond, meaning that, you've got a duty, you've got a job, you've got a responsibility, you've got a, there's all this you've got a resume that you've had to submit for this relationship, and you have to do all these jobs in order to keep it maintained. This is not a very enlightened relationship if you're always sort of stuck on feeling like there's this pressure of being enslaved to their needs, or that sort of trauma bond where you've got this job to do, but you can't quite, it's quite on the tip of your tongue, and you need to be liberated or free and have the fullness of life yourself, which is dissolved and completely liberated and free from this trauma bond. But there's the guilt that the covert narcissist will subtly convey, guilt, trepidation, fear, if you're leaving, or then that is harbored within yourself because of that enslavement. It's hard to break free. It's hard to remove them from the filter of your perspective. And so what to liberate is to understand you have to realize that you are in charge of your perspective. You are in charge of your perspective. You are in charge of your perspective. I'm going to say that again. You might want to write this down 100 times. I am in charge of my perspective. You are in charge of your perspective, meaning if you were to go to a baseball game and cheer, for the team that you love, and you'd be jumping up and down and look at that cool move, or look at that save, or look at that pass, that's your perspective. Someone else might be there and they might be looking at something different. They might be looking at the cheerleaders. They might be looking at the pretzels. They might be looking at the scoreboard. They might be looking at the skyline. That is their perspective, even though you're looking at the same thing. So same thing with a covert narcissist. You are responsible for your perspective. And this is oftentimes a very deep, profound truth. It's like, wowza. And to understand that you're in charge of your perspective, which means the meaning that you attach and connect is self-derived and generated to satisfy one of your needs. Oftentimes that's one of grounding and anchoring and stability, meaning your root chakra of your energy body is sourced a lot from this relationship. It's trying to keep you stable. It's trying to keep you located there. And oftentimes part of the covert narcissist relationship that's uncommunicated is that I need you to be here for this, to be here to help me move, to help me make my food, to help me with my finances, to help me when I'm older, to help me do my yard work. There's this, connection that the covert narcissist will need these others around in their life events. And so that is that desire, once again, that's, expressing itself and limiting you in the relationship, inhibiting you from being happy and walking out the door. It's like you're always holding onto the handle of responsibility. So to understand that to liberate is to move up in your energy and to be grounded and have your stability in something else. And this is very important that you take charge of this. That your happiness is derived from as being part of God's creation, a part of living your free will, part of expanding your experiences, your connections, getting closer to fulfillment of your own purpose and your own happiness. I mean, you might have a great sense of humor. You might be a comedian, but you can't express it around this person. Or you might be more serious than this person, or have more talents than are able to be expressed by this person. So there's this enslavement or containment that is experienced in the relationship, where you're sort of in a compartment of supply for them. It's like a job description. It's, a role that you're painted in. And if you perpetuate it unconsciously, you're going to get very good at the role of being in a relationship with a covert narcissist. You're going to be unhappy, but you're going to do a great job as being a source of supply. So it's to understand then that you are in charge of that perspective. And to get the perspective will help you to change the behaviors, because you'll see how then you have fed the trauma bond to keep you stuck because you thought it was needed, it was meaningful, it was nostalgic, this was the one and only, whatever limitation that you're describing, you're not giving enough credit to the universe and yourself at large to experience other freedom states and to grow up and to mature and evolve and to grow spiritually, and to understand why have you been holding yourself back. Are you afraid of being accountable? Are you afraid of self-governing yourself? Are you afraid of, disciplining yourself? Are you afraid of responsibility? Are you afraid, of what it means to meet other people, that you'll have to listen, or that maybe your part of you is still operating with a lot of shame, so you're embarrassed you'll say the wrong thing, or do the wrong thing, or wear the wrong thing, or eat the wrong thing, or whatever. All this is just churning in the mind. Let go of all that thought and just go into the mode of doing. Start to eliminate all that analysis and that based on the shame. You have to identify shame as it's coming up and going, yep, there's the shame, let it go. The shame can be oftentimes very deep, as it's been sort of part of this relationship that's kept you feeling stuck and getting some space, because a lot of you is anchored. It's like a balloon with an anchor at the bottom, but the balloon is supposed to be able to fly and be very light, but it's got an anchor at the bottom. It's kind of like you have to understand and look at your perspective of why is your stability here and not contained within yourself, and giving yourself the credit and being able to face then the next day, getting into, releasing maybe that you're angry about things, and that you can then get into the courage of, what does courage feel like in your life, and then being able to live more in the zone of courage. What does courage mean? Going on your recovery date. Taking your healed self out, your empowered self out on a date to enrich and live in that higher sense of how you would like to feel, be in your completeness, and how would you then nurture and feed that aspect, not the role of the perspective of one that's been enslaved, that's been harnessed, that's been limited, but what would be the next level that courage and curiosity would take you to? Do you see how there's a raising of vibration? And oftentimes people want to shoot up all the way to the top and be like, well, if I'm going to do it, it better be perfect. And they just throw themselves to the lions, and then they're really angry, they're really unhappy, they feel that life is messed up, things will never get straightened out. They haven't gone through the process in getting into that courage space and living in that courage space. It might require some aloneness, it might require some resourcefulness, and it might require, yes, some resourcefulness. One of the key success factors for business owners, entrepreneurs, managers, heads of government, etc., is resourcefulness. How can you be resourceful? How can you use what you have? How can you follow your interests just to begin to go from apathy to dabbling to interest to being a voracious reader or learner, to really be indulging your courage. What does it mean? What do you need to get in order? And rather than feeling that courage is regression, because a lot of people feel that they enter into, the new body language that their life is calling them to and the new purpose, they oftentimes feel that they have then disappointed, or they're stuck in that desire, or they feel that they have left a job undone. It's okay to leave the covert narcissist undone. That is their responsibility. That is the boundary. You don't have to cross over the boundary and then be, that's codependence, so you have to look at that and be willing to adjust and to stop the overindulgence of the covert relationship and, begin to indulge in the courage, begin to indulge in the curiosity, begin to pull back the curtains and enter out in your life that's not a stage, but is the real thing. And because life is not a dress rehearsal, you are going to arrive. And it's okay to arrive on your own. It doesn't mean that the covert narcissist has left you. It means that you are growing in space and that your energetic vibration is then, enacted. It's turned on and it's alive and it's in motion, energy in motion. And, it's good, when you get from that courage, and we talk about coming from a peaceful intensity or a relaxed body, otherwise known as neutrality. So you're getting from the courage then to the point where you're not judging. When things are going great, you're not skipping to my loo. I mean, you can be happy, but you can contain it. Just like when things are very difficult or you've had a traumatizing accident or something. And rather than being bottomed out, your day is ruined, your week is ruined, your month is ruined, whatever, you can kind of come back to that neutrality and focus and center. You've got that to call forth and begin to feel your resources within. And then you get more, you enact some more of your willingness, you get into accepting things, and you stop just analyzing and you start to be driven more from that connection of all your energy centers in, love, really, which is the absence of fear. So people oftentimes limit themselves because of that fear. That fight or flight is so strong that it just keeps them trauma bonded. So you have to be willing to exit out of that fight or flight series of cycles. And these cycles can be, in a minute. We get in depth here, yo. These cycles can be within a minute, they can be within an hour, they can be within a day, they can be within a relationship of a couple months. It can be, so there's like mini cycles, max, big cycles. So you have to look at how, and it's okay to say, wow, in my past, I see where I had my perspective. Once again, going back to looking at that baseball game, what is my perspective? Am I cheering on my team? Am I looking at the hot dogs? Am I looking at the buildings? You can be at the same thing and have a different perspective. So it's to understand you're in charge of your perspective and that you're liberating, and use the concept of indulging, your courage. Not audacity, not scorn, not contempt, not anger, not pride, because that will only, be a superficial fix. It's really to say, where does courage really want to take me? Where does where does neutrality and peace and security and stability with stability and courage take me? Where would I like to go and, illuminate myself, illuminate and feed the inner pool, the inner resources? How can I fuel my resourcefulness so that I can take it all in? If I always wanted to go to a beautiful church, draw the church. If I wanted to, go on a vacation that is spa-based or spiritually based or religious-based. If I wanted to go to the Holy Land, the Promised Land, the desert, the mountains. Do I want to go fishing in a pond, a stream, a lake, a mountain, river? Where have you really wanted to go, but that is left like buried, hidden, shut out, antiquated, you thought it would never fly because you were still stuck in the trauma bond. So indulge the courage and indulge in that neutrality and indulge in step by step. It's like guiding your body like a wild horse. A wild horse might be jumping, bucking, dancing, kicking. Don't horses buck people? Like if you stand behind them, I think they buck people, right? It's been a while that we've talked about this, but it's like understanding that you need to have, getting yourself in a new rhythm and a new momentum and training your musculature on the recovery dates and with the recovery gift to begin to live in that vibration and live in that new trained way of carrying yourself, just like the way a horse would need to be trained from wild and bucking, not just domesticated, not that it has no personality, but that you still have your personality and that it's not, trying to being stuck in the stable. Do you see, or what, I guess that's what I'm trying to say, is that understand the cause that's created this effect and to understand the cause that then creates the new effect that you're looking for in your life and begin to progress towards the latter so that you can begin to live in that and don't look for permission from the covert narcissist. You give yourself permission and remember those little cycles. Give yourself permission. Maybe that little cycle might be in a minute. It might be in a day. It might be in a week. Continue to give yourself permission to go, bravely with courage and to begin to explore those higher things that are within you. And they'll be self-perpetuating because you will enjoy it and it'll create a new feedback loop and help you to dispel that anchor or that weight from the trauma bond relationship with the covert narcissist. This is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today. I hope these videos do help. Please share, please subscribe, and please donate for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support. We appreciate your questions. I hope that you derive some actual understanding of the components that are required to set yourself free and disconnect from the lower vibration of the apathy, sort of that despondency, that fear, that low-level anxiety. Be willing to identify and then let it go and then get grounded in a new positive inner fire, inner groundedness, like that root chakra that's warm and, it's got that real sort of stabilizing energy without being restrictive. Have a beautiful day.